SBCN live TV with Steve Bentley. Steve, I've been drinking cider, so I'm falling all over my words.
Okay, we'll take your word for that, right?
Yeah, Dave and I had.
At least we're not drinking cider on TV right now.
We had some cider on the deck with our tea, and you know me, one drink and I go a bit wobbly.
It's okay to relax after a hard day.
It is. So, what have you been up to, Mr. Bentley?
I've been away for the last 3 weekends. I think last weekend we were up in, actually, my partner was in Moncton this past weekend in a sinking competition. Hi, Sue. And in the prior weekend I was up learning to paint with oil and actually do some nature photography. So I've had a couple good down weekends, but
that's good to know.
Work catches up. So.
Well, I went to my first stag and doe with Dave. It was my daughter's friend, one of my girls as I call her, and I thought it was highly amusing, you know. We had a great time. We came home, I flopped into bed. And then I think you've got a
Did you drink cider too?
No, I didn't drink. I drank wine. I drank 4 little wines. I think you've got a question of somebody tonight, which we may have covered, but I think it's nice to have a reminder.
Right. I'm going to do a shout out to Sue, who just was in a bit of a spirit today where she actually sent
You mean she'd been drinking the
in.
spirits
No,
too?
she was working. I probably was the one drinking the spirits, right? But she sort of suggested things that were just running through her head is trying to remember to cover the basics like workflow tips and tricks, or staying organized, staying motivated when sales are slow, deciding on vendors to use for your business, such as website developers and that kind of stuff. And I think the first thing is staying organized. That is the biggest challenge of any business owner, is finding enough time in the day to be able to do what they need to do. And I think we both have a bit of a different perspective, but that doesn't matter what the perspective is. You have to find what works for you. So for me, scheduling and time management and calendar entries and making sure that I'm allocating time for administrative functions, marketing functions, client functions, even personal things going into the schedule, so that there's always a schedule.
What's the different perspective then? Do I just flop out of bed and go, I don't care if it gets done?
I think you use a bit of an online kind of process or electronic, but you also use written. A lot of handwritten notes and
I guess for the 2 businesses, for the one business I have an admin in the UK, and for the Small Business Community Network, I do it all myself. I have a paper calendar. I've got some sticky. Can you show me those sticky? So these wonderful sticky, what would you call them?
Stickers.
Yeah, stickers. They were from the calendar that Ian Ingalls gave us, one of our members. They're amazing. And what I do, I stick them on my TD credit card, and then people go, when I'm in the bank, where did you get those stickers from? And I go, oh, so I'm very organised. I put stickers on my cards because then I can tell which card I've got. So I like to put stuff in my paper calendar. I like to put stuff on my bulletin board. I like to do the online stuff. As for organisation, I was talking about this to somebody today. I answer the phone and I reply to messages more than a lot of other people. I think for the simple reason, if it's a speakers bureau offering me a gig today, a lot of speakers, you know, don't want to get paid. They just want to become famous. So got to grab that call if Anne doesn't call it. And somebody else said that. I was selling houses. Crystal Remillard, who I interviewed today, she said if she doesn't answer the phone, she'll lose that call. So again, I'm organised in the sense that I do have tasks to do, but if the phone, I've got 4 different lines on there, whichever line.
I think that's an important point. I mean, we have a lot of our calls, other than direct calls, coming through our offices, right? There are some that I don't hear. There are some that are urgent or sent to me at certain times of the day, but there are obviously going to be ones. It doesn't matter. Well, I guess there's some business, maybe not, but whenever you're dealing with potentially getting a client or dealing with a client issue, sometimes you have to return those calls fairly immediately, right? Or at least tell them when they can respectively get a reply to you. I think the other thing, too, is from a calendar perspective, having an admin is a big thing. So if you're in a business and you're developing your business and you're finding that you've just got too many demands on your time,
you've got to let
seriously consider administrative support and virtual assistants as an example, or part-time. Start, because it's a leverage, because more time you spend doing business and generating,
you're not doing the stuff
business and sales, you're generating revenue, as opposed to doing administrative things which people can do less expensively.
And then you're going to let stuff go, like you're not going to send your invoices on time, you're not going to get paid, you're not going to get your calendar updated. Was the one there that said something about, there was you did a list of 3 things, and I was going to jump on one because it was one of my favourite. Yes, was it what do you do when things are slow, when sales are slow?
Yeah, and the key piece was, how do you stay motivated? You know how disabilitating losing a sale or client.
Yeah,
That can really be
and rejection.
harmful, right?
None
It's
of us
hard
like
to
rejection. This is where the online resources come in, Stephen. This is where people fail to realise that if you've got your online connections, if you're using the online resources correctly, and your sales are going down, this is where you can G them up. This is where you can get more attention. Plus, if sales are slow, do you know why? Find out the
big
why.
Point. Big point.
Because if you don't know the why now,
right.
I watch Coronation Street. I guess everybody knows
right.
about Coronation. It's quite funny though. So the one guy, Steve, he has a taxi firm.
And it's not me.
Streetcars, and now they've got a competitor. This is real life though, people, and the competitor's using the online resources. So people, like Uber and stuff like that. It's not called Uber. This one isn't particular. So keep in touch with all the things that you can do to help your sales. So what are your competitors doing? Why are your sales slipping? Find out why.
Well, I think there's another thing, too, is activity. We get into a business where all of a sudden we're working on potential, say, working, and all of a sudden that doesn't materialize. Well, the first thing is you stop, you say, oh, well, and you move on to the next activity. But don't just have one or two things in the works. You've got to try and have as many things.
You can always ask
the
client, why they didn't choose you. Really, I mean, it depends what business you're in. Like, if it's for me and a speaker's bureau, I'm sorry you didn't get the gig this time. I say, well, was it my topic? Was I ugly? Or
well, I don't think there's anything wrong with asking people that if they're willing to answer the question.
Was there something I could have done better?
Could be something very simple too.
But that's a good question.
The other point is, sometimes when you answer something because they said, well, we're deciding to do something else, you might suggest something that gets them to change their tack, right? But I think the activity, you just move on to the next activity, right? You should always try and measure and find out why.
Perseverance as well.
Don't get caught off.
Three wonderful things. The resilience bit I stole from Lisa Listen because she's amazing. But I've always persevered and I've always been very persuasive, and I love to talk to people and at the moment I'm doing a lot of podcasts for motivational steps. So basically, if somebody said, yes, I'll do a podcast with you, and they forget, well, I go back and say, hey, I know you're busy, but, I'm getting really booked up for the podcast. And so I'm memorable, and then they can't forget me. So I get them to do the podcast.
I've used this term before, but I like to be persistently patient.
Yes,
or something along that line. You know what? You've got to have the follow up too, right? Sometimes you lose activity, you lose sales, you lose things, opportunity because you don't follow up or you don't do what you say you're going to do, right? Sometimes that's the reason sales don't happen, right? But I think the other thing is you got to be a little more diversified. Don't just concentrate on the one thing, but always be working the prospecting.
So this is what I don't get about some businesses, and it's not just the new businesses. You just said the word diversify. I love that. Many years ago, I realised I couldn't just stand up and do keynotes at gigs because there's not enough to go around even now. So basically, I started doing workshops, I started writing books, I started doing podcasts. So every business can diversify, I think.
Well, the other part is the exposure. We've talked about that before, but the more people can see and hear of what you do and how you do it, you may be generating perspectives.
I can't misuse Steve.
They could be getting prospects. They could be getting ideas. Oh, somebody can help me with that because she said this, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just trying to keep one focus, I've always been told, like prospecting, right? You should always, somebody told me this years ago, you should always have 5 fishing lines in the water,
I
right?
like that.
Not one.
I like that.
You may reel something in, you may not get a bite on something, or you may have a lot of activity on another. Always have something that's going to fill in that gap.
If you don't go fishing.
Right. And it goes in cycles. Some things
that.
do very well at points, and sometimes they don't. So you have to have other things going.
I really like that. So
time.
those are 2 good questions. Thank you, sir. Any more?
Yeah, she actually asked a couple more questions.
I like the bird, by the way, on the phone.
Yeah, that was a picture from a couple of weeks ago. How do you choose vendors, the best vendors for some of your support services? Her examples were printers or website designers or photographers, and ensuring they're a good fit for you, right?
Yeah.
Due diligence, right? You got to look at each, and I think the thing is, you always hear about contractors, right? Well, I'm going to go with this contractor. Well, did you get competitive quotes? Did you get other people to give you their perspective, right? Have some choice. Do your due diligence. Talk to people. Talk to their referrals. But you also got to make sure that they're in the same mindset as you, right?
Well, they should be asking lots of questions. It doesn't matter what business you're in. If you want some work done and the person in front of you saying, I know exactly what you want, get rid of them, show them the door. The other thing is I get a lot of phone calls to recommend members. And I always recommend someone who's not a member because to me that's very fair because I'm out in the community. So I say to the people who's asked for the recommendation, If they're not asking any questions, show them the door. But you've also got to know what you want. You've also got to be a partnership and listen to each other. And also contracts. People who don't do contracts and think they can just hand over money and everything's going to be...
Well, I'm going to do a plug out for Gunther from Gecko Websites.
Hi, Gunther.
And this is something he said to me a long time ago. He said, somebody comes in for a website, right? And the first question he asks them is, why do you need a website?
Yeah,
so when you got people, whether it be photographers, website designers, trying to find out what you need, understanding why you think you need it, and helping you work to even find out if you need it or what you actually do need, or things that you're not even thinking about. So not just saying, here's what I do. Trying to define.
I've got to say, though, all of our guys, we've got lots of guys at the SBCN, as you know, every single one of them, Adam, Gunther, who else is there? Who else do we have? Craig Herner. Mike, they always ask the same question because they're told by us they've got to because we're very bossy. No, I'm only joking. But basically, we attract the people who are secure in the fact that they know they're offering the best services. I think that's why we've got such a strong circle of networkers. The other thing is you've got to feel comfortable with the person you're going to be working with.
Big time.
So if I had to work with somebody who was, I know what you want, Linda, and this is how much it's going to cost, I'd curl up in a ball and cry because I didn't feel comfortable with them.
Which actually ties into another one of Sue's points. She said another good question is when and why and how do you fire a client? And I'll be honest with you, I just went through that process last week. And I've been working with somebody for quite a few months, but it just wasn't gelling. We just weren't on the same wavelength. And so you're not doing a service to a client if you don't feel that you're delivering what they're asking
it's
of you,
uncomfortable,
right? So at some point you have to cut the cord, right? You try to find out why, you try to reason it out, but if it just isn't working, then don't waste your time. And it's a betterment for them too, because then
do you pass them on to someone? Do you recommend
if it's
anyone?
appropriate? It really depends on each situation, but in a lot of cases I do, because maybe there's something that we don't specialize in, or somebody that's very suited for this particular skill that they need. Then that is an easy referral to make.
And be kind, always be kind. And, there's a good way to do it and there's a bad way to do it. I didn't get into business to work with people I don't like and trust and who don't understand why I'm doing something. So I wouldn't say I've fired clients. I just gently say it's not a good idea to work with.
Well, fire is a hard term, but it's ending a relationship, right? And I think that's, when we do what we do in our letter of engagement, it's one of the clear points is that here's how we separate the agreement. Here's how we break away from this agreement. So it's understood. Here's how we can do it, right? But you should always have that conversation. But also, don't just fire or get rid of them. Try and see if you can find out why it's not working, or if there's things that maybe you can improve in what you do.
Well, yeah, it could
or
be
maybe
a
you're doing everything fine.
It could be a personality.
Oh, absolutely.
You've just reminded me of something as well. Everybody volunteers. We all volunteer. We all give back to our community. I'm very keen to tell people when you're choosing a position to volunteer with, if you're going to be on a board or committee or whatever, make sure you believe in what the committee or board is doing. I've been asked to be on a couple of different ones over the years, and I've turned a couple down because I didn't feel it gelled with my principles or, the way I thought about certain things. And I thought, probably going to upset people by opening my big mouth, so it's better to say no to certain things. And also, don't do that just because you want more exposure. Like your
that can hurt
habitat,
you.
right?
Your habitat for humanity,
yeah,
yes. And one of the things I'm participating on is actually a committee to try and see how we can increase the diversity of members on the board, right? And I think we're always looking at trying to make ourselves better for the people that we provide services for.
Different opinions.
But you have to have a passion. So for us, real estate makes sense to be tied into something such as affordable housing. And that's a big move in our community right now in many different ways. And so you have to have that passion, because if you don't, you're not just attending a meeting. You need to be participating.
Have you ever been stuck on a committee or a board where it's like a template and you meet every month and nothing gets done and change is bad? And I'll go, please get me to the end of this year, otherwise I'm going to, need to drink more.
I actually read a book and did a presentation on that the other year in terms of
you read a book?
I read books all the time. holding boards accountable and what type of board you are, without getting the mechanics of it, but really was looking at the functionality of the board and how we can improve what we were doing.
Yeah, I'd like to be involved in some of the downtown Kitchener event committees. I'm not going to say which one, because
ones that serve cider.
They've got a bit they've got a bit stale, but evidently I'm a Brit, so I don't get involved in anything. I'm very unfriendly. Those are really good topics. Thanks for bringing them to our attention, Stephen. So I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about networking because with all the different things I do in the community, obviously a lot of it revolves around networking. But I want to get down to the nitty-gritty. Like, we're seasoned networkers, Steve. We know what to do. Mm-hmm. So can you remember the first time?
Yes, I can.
You networked. It wasn't with us. It was with somebody else. I'm sure.
Many years ago.
Yeah.
But the funny thing was this. I went to an event. I stayed in my car. I didn't go in.
That sounds like Janet
I was just, I wouldn't say petrified, but I just really wasn't sure of myself, right?
How many years ago is this?
Oh, God, I'm not going to say it.
I can't imagine you not being sure of yourself.
But I took a step back and I said, well, why didn't I go in?
Yeah.
Right? And I needed to convince myself that part of it's the industry I'm in and the connotation with, particularly like insurance and that kind of stuff. But part of it was being self-assured, being a little more confident and try. And what do they say? You got to step out of that box once in a while, right? Yeah. So I think people who aren't into networking, you got to try different ways, and you got to go outside your box, and you got to be a little bit uncomfortable maybe, but there's certainly good ways to approach it. And I think sometimes just going with people and experiencing.
Can I ask you, was it 20 years ago or less than 20 years ago?
20 years ago.
Okay, so there's nothing disrespectful there. Like, I've been
completely changed.
Yeah, I've been networking for 19 years. That's when I started Motivational Steps. And basically, there wasn't as many networking opportunities then. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a lot more gentle opportunities out there that gives you a chance, and we're one of those, to find your feet. But let me tell you about one of my experiences. I'm very shy. Nobody believes it. I don't really like networking, even though people don't believe it. So I was driven to, I think it was Brantford, by a girlfriend. And basically we got to this place, this networking event, and we had to each stand up at the podium and say our 30-second infomercial. Now, yes, I'd only been professionally speaking for a year, but I was kind of good. I know I was good. I was already getting paid for it. And there was a speaker there who was supposed to be really famous. And after I'd done my 30 seconds, she said, if you buy all my videos and all my books and my tapes for a lot of money, and I had no money at that time, you'll be a much better speaker. So I would say when you go to a networking event, try not to, be mean to people.
Right.
So I was really too scared to say no. And I didn't have a credit card in those days. We were still quite poor. And so I phoned Dave to come and pick me up. I just wanted to get the hell out of there. I know, I'm a baby. And I get home and Dave says, but why did you not say no? I couldn't say no. And he parceled them up and he sent them back to this woman. And I would never go through that again in my life. I would never go through...
Well, to me, that's not even a proper networking event because there should be no obligation going to a networking event.
It was horrible.
Event, right? That is just a position.
She was just a guest, though. She wasn't anybody who ran the networking event. She was just somebody who thought too much of herself. I wish somebody around me had made me feel comfortable and said, well, you can say no. But they were all kind of staring at me. So I think what's changed today, you've got more choice with which kind of networking events. Yeah. So if you're new to networking, I'd choose one of the free ones where there's no commitment. You can just go along, maybe pay for your coffee or tea, get to know people. We Steve knows, we welcome people and never let anybody, the small business community network, stand on their own.
Well, the other thing, too, is there's so many networking events out there, right? And so maybe you should take a little bit of time and just choose a few different ones, right, and see what they're like.
And the time of day matters as well because, as Steve knows, I don't like talking and eating, do I? Because I tend to choke.
Most people do.
Don't you remember at lunch you saved my life?
Yes.
It was embarrassing. So I don't like eating at breakfast or lunch networking, so I end up being hungry. But you enjoy them, don't you?
Well, I do a lot of business meals.
Yeah. Plus they're more money. They cost more money.
Well, this is business expense. But, for us, it's just more of a social way of being able to engage and have client discussions and not feel like you're behind a desk or in a closed room.
But why are we networking, Steve? Why do we put ourselves through the hassle of networking and meeting all these weird people and getting to know them? Why do we do it?
Well, how do we find clients? Right? Connectivity, a presence. You have to get if you want to use the word brand, but you have to get who you are,
you have to be
what
seen
you
to
do,
be seen.
And you got to take it out there.
And
you're not going to get clients sitting in an office waiting for a phone to ring.
It's not just about clients, though. It's about building the communities, the alliances, gaining the sponsors, and being seen to be seen.
Well, the other thing is what I call centers of influence, right?
Yeah.
So meeting people who are going to potentially help in the services that you provide, a lawyer, an accountant in our case, right? But those relationships form, and at some point they will generate opportunity, leads, referrals, introductions,
patience, time.
But you've always got to be cultivating that, and you've always got to be going out and, I call it sort of like, planting seeds. You got to continue to be planting.
I guess my point is, if somebody's new to networking, you're going to start off slowly, you're going to find your feet, you're going to find your comfort zone, you're going to find out what you like and what you don't like. And then eventually, I don't know about you, Steve, but I do a lot of my networking online now because I travel a lot. So people think I'm still here, but I'm not really because I'm in another country. And so once you've gained that kind of momentum, it cuts your cost in half as well because you don't have to pay to go to all the networking events.
Well, that's the other thing, the cost. Particularly as a small business owner getting into it, there's an expense to a lot of respect to going to some networking events. That's why you have to be very careful of what you do and what you choose.
Don't waste your money. Find out what they are doing for you, not just what you're doing for the networking.
But even the networking through just what, like you've done podcasts or doing articles or whatever, just creating that brand awareness out there. People will get an interest and will read your articles, they'll listen to your podcasts, and if there's a connectivity, that's a different way of creating
it's the very basics, really, isn't it, of networking that people forget. It's simple. You're doing it for the reason you want to do it. Like at the SBCN, we've had people coming along who are not-for-profits, and they're looking for people to help them fundraise or looking for people to give their clients, work. It's not just about a person gaining a sale. It could be lots of different reasons. So I just wanted to talk about that a bit because I guess we talked about it at SBCN Connect recently and people saying I'm still confused about networking. Plus, don't let anybody push you into what's the word I'm looking for? Attending or actually pay money to attend an event that you don't want to attend. Because me,
you don't want to attend it, don't go, right? Don't pay for it. But you got to be conscious of that, right?
Don't they?
You can't, though, right? Yeah. And people who are honestly running these events or are going to understand that, right? Because they do it themselves, to be honest with you, right? But I think etiquette in networking, too. Yeah. Don't feel you've got to go in with an agenda to make a presentation or a presence. Just go in and have conversations, right?
Be natural.
Linda, I'm glad to see you tonight. What brings you here, right? Something as simple as an introduction that way.
You never
Don't be full of yourself.
You never
Don't talk about just what you do and how great you are.
Ask questions of the other person.
Right, open-ended questions, but more to get to know them, not so much, okay, what is it you sell, right? That comes out naturally, so just be more natural and conversative.
Another thing I will say is there is some confusion about hard sell and selling. So, and again, we disagree on this a lot. I think it's okay if once you've built a relationship for somebody to sit there or stand there and tell you about their business because you've done the small talk. And again, this was discussed at SBCN Coffee Connect, where somebody says, well, A, B, or C does a lot of hard sell because they keep talking about the business. Well, some people...
I don't call that hard selling, though, to be honest with you.
Well, some people have to get the sales in, so they've got to do it. Right. I think the thing you've got a problem with is when somebody continues talking about what they do when you're obviously not interested. And so what I do, I just say, I'm sorry, I can see somebody else over there, so I'll walk away. But
right. But that's, again, where people are talking too much about themselves. There's nothing wrong, and I deal with this a lot of people, too, in terms of asking for a sale. Or, when it's appropriate, explaining what you do. But you don't just go in and see somebody and have 2 seconds of talking and then get right into what you do.
And this is why I ask questions. I go, hey, Steve, just met for the first time. Are you married? Do you have children? Have you got a dog? Have you got a cat? Where do you live? To go on holiday? I ask all these questions. I can find out if you've got a budget. I can find out if we gel, if we like each other. I can find out if you're actually in business or you're the decision maker. And for some reason, people just give me the answers. They must like me or trust me, I hope. Dave said I'd make a good social engineer.
Well, I think there are open-ended questions too, right? And you're just probing for information.
But
and
don't
you can use
like
that in a conversation.
To be asked, how did you spend your weekend?
To some degree. I mean,
to
me, I just draw a line sometimes where... Sometimes it goes a little personal, but that's where you got to just deflect a little bit, right? People generally, if they're asking these questions, want to get to know you. Obviously your business is one thing, but they want to get to know you as well, which is more important to really establish that connectivity as you talked about.
I'm trying to think about anything that's personal that you never talk about. You talk about everything, Stephen.
All over social media too, right? But.
So forget that one. So it's been a really good discussion. Sue and you came up with some good questions. We've covered some really, really, really good topics. Did you have anything in particular that you've come across in the past couple of weeks that you wanted to share with? Because Northern River Financial is our awesome sponsor. Steve Bentley is an awesome person. So you've got a wealth of experience to share with our viewers.
Open platform, right? Yeah, you know what? we're going through a little bit of tax now with sole proprietors filing by next 15th So anybody who's in a small business as a sole proprietor, don't forget your tax deadline of June 15th.
What happens if you forget them?
Well,
you get carted off to jail.
Late filing penalties and interest if money's owed, which technically should have been paid April 30th.
That's not good.
But for us, we're really really expanding in terms of engaging with some new people that potentially could become part of our business in the next little while. And that's how we grow our relationships, right? Is sometimes we find there's an advisor who's in a position where they're really new, or they're older and they're looking at backing away from the business. So we engage with them to help them provide that succession or that training to try and get to the next level. So we're doing a lot of that.
And you attend a lot of conferences, don't you? Mm-hmm. Because we should always
be
educating ourselves.
Well, in our profession, we have continuing education requirements, right? But I think everybody should put that on themselves because when have you gone into a situation where you want to ask an IT question and these people are not current, right?
Yeah.
You have to be technically right at the top of your game and going to conferences and listening to webinars and finding and reading. You've always got to be learning, right? And I wrote a piece in my Northern River Reflections a couple of weeks ago talking about people who call themselves experts.
Right?
I don't like the term personally, but you can tell right away if somebody is not an expert if they don't do some of these things.
There's no such thing as an expert.
Well, I don't agree. I totally said that, right? I don't agree, expert. I'm talking about people that are so-called experts.
You may be an expert today, but tomorrow something new comes out.
Right, because everything is changing, right? Because you learned something 10 years ago doesn't make it relevant.
The thing about Northern River Financial, you walk your talk, your brand is amazing, you are a really nice person, so are the people who you surround yourself with, that you work with, your employees and everything. And I think that's why you've been in business a very long time and people trust you, and that's very important.
It is very important. Clients obviously paramount, but also the relationships we have with our professional associates and things of that nature. But I look at it to say that there's one big family, right? And everybody's got to get along. And sometimes you've got to deal with the little battles, but in the long scheme of things, they don't really matter, do they? It's the personality and it's dealing with people.
I think being in business today is more fun than not because we have so many things to help us along. And on that note, I'm going to say it's been a wonderful, wonderful chat tonight, Steve. It's been really lovely. And we've gone over some old topics purely because we have different people, visiting us tonight, which is wonderful to have, people watching us live. And we've got to think of some really good topics for the next time, haven't we? So maybe if the viewers can please send us some questions by email if you can't come back again and see us live.
But I'll tell you one thing. I listened to Todd last week, and he talked about Google Minis and Google HomePods. And
have you started doing it now?
I have one. I love it.
We've got two.
And it's amazing what you can do once you start using it, right? I love it. I tell Google to tell me a joke if I'm in a bad mood.
Well, I'm a bit annoyed
scheduling and relevant information. It's very
my daughter's got a man's voice. She's got a man's voice. No one knows she's got a man's voice because the one upstairs and downstairs is a lady's voice. So Google, how do I get a man's voice?
I think in your app you can change
That's what Dave said. I've just been too lazy. But we've got all these things to help us. It makes our life easier, doesn't it? So do you think, we'll get some more topics in a couple of weeks? When's our next one, Steve? You've always got the date.
2 weeks, and you're going to ask me to do math. So it's the 4th today, it'll be the 18th.
So the 18th we'll be back, won't we? And we're hoping to get some more questions from you. And I think the topics we covered tonight were great reminders about, networking and, sales and stuff like that. And in 2 weeks' time, we're going to have even more wonderful topics for you. I want to thank you for coming along again, though, Steve, because you've had a busy week. Mm-hmm. Go. Mm-hmm. And you've been on the road a lot, haven't you?
Yeah. Like I said, the last 3 weeks have just been crazy. So we're finally getting a little bit of downtime. So it's kind of nice to be back in one city for a night. Right.
It's nice to have you back. And after this, you're going to have a bit of a relax?
I am going to do that. I don't know if it's wine. I don't know if it's bourbon. But I'm going to actually go back. I'm going to do some editing on some photographs I took the other week. And I'm just going to have a quiet, relaxing
Well, I've got cider, as you all know, because I started the show really badly.
She has one right here.
No, I wish I did have. And Gary Vee has a drink of wine on his show, so why can't we?
He owns. That's one of his businesses. So that's how we started. But it's amazing.
So I guess we're going to say good night, everyone. It was nice to see you again. Another SBCN TV episode.
Good, shout it out.
My cider's gone away. It's always fun when you come round, Steve, because you give me the giggles.
Just makes it more entertaining, I guess.
It does, yeah.
So, you know what? We'll just hold it there, and we'll see you in 2 weeks, and hopefully we'll have some more good information for you.